Hey, what's up guys? This is Danny from AE Scripts. I'm here to show you my latest update to my plugin called Lazy. For those of you who aren't familiar with what Lazy is, essentially what it is allows you to distribute layers and keyframes across the timeline using a Bezier curve. So as you can see, this is our newest updated interface right here. We have, this should be pretty familiar with you. It's a Bezier curve, obviously. Here we have our handles. Down here you can see the duration of the distribution. Right now it's set to 30 frames, and this is a toggle that allows you to toggle between ascending and descending distributions. So some of our latest updates in here obviously is the newest UI. We got rid of a ton of bug fixes, and it should run a lot smoother and will allow you to do a lot more distributions than you were able to do in the past. So without further ado, let's get into it. So right now I have this composition set up, and there are 10 layers here, and all of them are moving from left to right all onto the screen. So as you can see, we have these each individual layers here. So right now they're all moving at the same time, at the same pace, and it honestly just looks like a regular huge shape layer moving across the screen. So normally what you would want to do if you're doing a distribution is you'd select all your different layers, trim them, then you would go right click, keyframe assistant, and then sequence layers. And now as you can see, they're all sequenced, but they're all sequenced one after each other, and you could have them offset on each other so they would wouldn't be distributed to the end of the layers, but even then you still have a linear distribution. And one of the most imperative things to know about motion graphics in general is the concept of easing. So we took this concept of easing and we brought it into layer distribution and keyframe distribution, and that's why we're calling it the second dimension of After Effects easing. So let me show you a little bit of how Lazy works here. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all of our layers here. We're going to determine the duration of the distribution that we have here. So let's say that we'll just leave it at 30, and let's leave it toggle to a descending distribution. All you have to do is decide on the curve that you want. We're going to do just a little bit of an ease out here. Okay, so it's going to shoot up, and then as we get closer to the end of a distribution, they should be more spaced out. So now, as you can see, let's hit the tilde key and bring up our whole timeline here. We have this distribution where the first few layers in the selection are more closely together, but as we grow along here in the timeline, we can see that they are become more and more spaced out. So let's get a little idea of what that animation actually looks like. Beautiful. All right, so as you can see, we have these first layers, like I said, fairly close together, but as we go closer and closer down the timeline, they get more and more spread out. Now, a simple Command Z will get you right back to where we started. Now let's see what a regular ease looks like here. So this is just an easy ease that we're going to do here. So now what we're going to see is the first layer is going to come on fairly slowly, but the middle layer is going to come on closer together, and we'll end with the last layers coming out farther apart. Beautiful. So like I said, second dimension of After Effects easing here. It's really hard to accomplish this without a tool like Lazy. Normally you would have to kind of guesstimate where these layers would fall along a typical Bezier curve that you're wanting to make, and it's really just a pain to do that. So let me show you a little bit more about this interface. If we right click, we can get back to our standard distribution. So as you saw what happened right there, one of the newest things in our update allows for the distribution to take place at the start of the playhead, and I know that was a one of the biggest feature requests in Lazy, so we went ahead and did that for you guys. I'm loving it. It saves a lot of time when, especially with keyframes, which we'll cover here in a second. Instead of having them all start at the beginning of the timeline, now it actually starts at where your playhead is. So like I said, we're back to the standard easy ease here. And then if we want, we can go back to the start of the timeline, and we can toggle this. So now we're going to be ascending instead of descending. So we'll start from the bottom this time. And just like that, it's super easy to get these amazing distributions that wasn't really possible in After Effects up until now. So yeah, let me give you another quick little uh, piece of information while we're still in this composition. So like I said, this is great for layers, but if you don't want to actually move the layers in the timeline like we normally do when we use Lazy, we can actually select all of these keyframes. And so in the past, this was pretty buggy, but now we figured it out. So uh, you can select as many keyframes as you want, disregarding if they're in different layers, and we can use Lazy for them also. So let's click here, and boom, just like that. Now our layers aren't even moving. We just have the keyframes moving, so we still get the same animation, but now all our layers stay in the same place. So let's say you had a bunch of different keyframes later down here in this timeline on these layers, and you didn't want to move them all across the timeline and get those all affected when you distribute the layers. Now you can just select the keyframes and just distribute those actual keyframes. Let's jump into the text demo here, and I'll show you a little bit more practical use of how we could use something like this. So as you can see, we have this text layer right here. It's all in one layer, right? These are all different groups inside of this this one shape layer. And to do this, you type out your text, right-click, hit create text, create shape layers from text, and boom. So anyways, there's a mask on here, right here, and we have all these different little shape layer groups moving up into this mask. So right now, it looks like just the whole thing is moving up, obviously because they're all happening at the same time and the same pace. So normally we would have to go ahead and we would select all of these layers and drag them out one at a time, deselecting that, dragging out. But obviously that is a huge waste of time, especially when we have access to a tool like this. So now we can use Lazy to quickly and very effectively distribute these keyframes across this layer. So let's do a little bit more of a dramatic ease here. So let's drag this bottom Bezier handle out, and then let's also drag this one out too. So as you can see, as soon as we let go, we're getting that distribution right away. And that's something that was a little bit buggy in the past before, where all the original keyframes weren't selected and it was a huge mess. But cleaned up all the code. We actually got a new developer. He's awesome, and we've been making some great improvements. So this should be a very rock solid product, and you should be able to really utilize this to its maximum potential. Anyways, let's see what this little animation looks like now. Beautiful. Okay, so obviously we went the wrong way there. So let's toggle the descending toggle, and now we'll start from the beginning. So as you can see, we have this first layer coming up very quickly, and then the middle layers coming up more so together, like as you can see here in this curve, and then the ending layers come up farther apart. So this is a very dramatic curve, and also not a whole lot of actually a very long amount of distribution. So let's make this more like 10 frames. And as soon as you type in your frame rate and hit enter, it'll update that curve automatically also. Had a little bit of an issue here. I think we didn't select all of those layers. So let's redo that, and then boom. Perfect. Okay, cool. So now that's more pronounced, where this would probably be something that you'd be looking more to get here. So like I said, unlimited possibilities. You can do whatever type of easing you want on this. Let's do a very dramatic ease out, and so essentially all these first layers should come up at the same time, and then we'll end with those last layers coming up very slowly together. Oh, beautiful. Okay. So tons of different ways to use this. I'll give you one last quick little demonstration. So like I said, we cleaned up a lot of the bugs that were happening in the old version. So now let's say that we have an animation here, and we have the whole layer scaling up from 0 to 100, starting here, as you can see, at 0, ending at 100 here. And there's all these different groups inside this layer that are also scaling up to 100. So and then later in the animation, as we can see, they're at 100, all these different groups are, and now they're scaling back down to 0. Oop, hit the caps lock there. Now they're scaling back down to 0. So in the previous version, it was pretty buggy to go ahead and distribute only select keyframes, but we've since revamped that, and let me show you a little bit of how that works. So if we go ahead and we select those layers all within we select all those keyframes within this layer, I'm sorry, we can then go and drag out our Bezier handles here. And boom, perfect. Now we have this awesome distribution only for the keyframes that we selected, all the while leaving these previous, or these keyframes over here completely intact. So again, same great interface, same great tool, same functionality. It's all just been improved. We've gone through, ripped out a bunch of the code, rebuilt it, and it should be working flawlessly and has a lot of different uses. I mean, I use this thing every single day in my motion graphics career, whether it's distributing layers like this, doing text animations. It's really cool when you have different layers falling from above the scene. So let's say you have like a bunch of, I don't know, popcorn falling from the top of the scene. You can distribute it so that, you know, the first few pieces come on slowly, and then you have a bunch in the middle, and then it ends with like the last little pieces of popcorn trickling down. There's just so many uses. I use it all the time. Give it a shot, give it a trial, see what happens. I'm sure you guys can find many more uses in it, and I've discussed in here. And yeah, hope you guys like it. Thanks.